award ceremony here. We'll get into awards. Best character. So, Gavin, I'll let you go first for your best character.
Um, okay, may have already, harped on this, but I'll stick with it. I'm gonna just say for being a solid villain, tidy whities and all, Kingpin is my guy. You know what I mean? He's conniving. He's classic. Just killing people right at his round table of CEOs and just letting them know that his word is the final word. There's really no back and forth discussion. You know what I mean? He's that classic no frills bad guy that gets stuff done and yeah.
Yeah, I think he. So, during a little bit of my looking back, like I realized, and I don't think people always realize this, but like he was a Spider-Man villain first, and he worked well in Spider-Man, but I don't. I mean, I think he works best with as a foil to Daredevil. Um,
Yeah.
for me, my best character is actually Ben Urich. Um,
You.
and he is the reporter. And I do realize that we've had two whole episodes already, and both of my
Yeah.
best characters have been journalists from the Daily Bugle, which is just really weird because there's only like 6 or 7 named journalists from the Daily Bugle, probably in the whole Marvel universe. Uh,
Yeah.
at least in this era. At least until we get into like the modern era where everybody gets named and they add characters all the time. But yeah, um, Ben really, he works as a good kind of almost like a reader viewpoint character at times, but also moves the story along, and you really feel like without his influence, Daredevil doesn't get things done in the same way, right? Like without Ben, the conclusion doesn't wrap up the same. Without him, the motivations I feel like are different for Daredevil. Like he very very much feels like because he doesn't waver from his duty, because he doesn't waver from what he's doing, that allows Daredevil to have that connection back to what he's meant to be, right? What he wants to be. And obviously Karen Page and the nun character and stuff have more direct roles in Matt getting back up off the mat, but
Yeah.
I said Matt twice in the same sentence. Matt Murdock getting back up off the proverbial mat, and I just feel like Ben is that steady character, and he's what a journalist is meant to be. And again, we got a little bit towards the end of some political commentary from Frank Miller, I feel, and I think it highlights that like Frank Miller was part of what Frank Miller's saying here is that the importance of media, the importance of journalism, is still relevant. I think that kind of comes across a little bit there. Worst character for me, Karen Page, and this is I know that we've said before the best character, worst character can be how they're written, can be how we feel about the character. We keep it a little loose here, but I it's written a little heavy-handed for me. It seems like obviously she has to be the one to give the name to the mob that starts everything off, like how else is Kingpin known? But the whole porn star to drug addict
Mm-hmm.
thing, it's a bit much even for it feels like a bit much even for the 80s, but that's just me. Um,
Yeah.
I know that sometimes you know, other people have other tastes on that type of deal, but for me it seems a little unrealistic. Uh, I'm sure that has happened to people, but what's the actual like numbers? Like that does that how many people become a porn star, go to be an actress, then become a porn star, then become a drug addict in Mexico, and then make their way
Yeah.
back? Like the likelihood is just it takes you just a little bit out of it for a story that is mostly grounded in reality, with the exception of the blind guy that has heightened senses so much that he can see and fight bad guys. But
Yeah,
um,
yeah, yeah. She doesn't
everything else,
have much of a
yeah,
redemption arc, that's for sure.
yeah,
Right? It's
yeah,
just
and
kind
yeah,
of like,
that doesn't. It's just like she comes back, and then Matt is just he's just cool with it.
yeah, he's like, oh yeah, this
Like
is my girl now,
yeah,
and
and to my knowledge, and I didn't. I mean, I didn't do the research beforehand, but like it's implied that he was actively dating Gloriana, um, who then goes on to date Foggy Nelson in this story. That he was actively dating her at the beginning of the story, and then like
yeah,
forgets her.
yeah, right,
So yeah, it
and
seems a little forced. Like yeah, this is my like Mo was like this is my preferred love interest. So she's back now, and that's what it feels like a little bit. But yeah.
mm, and yeah, I'll just go with mine because to be honest, I don't really have that much of one, but mine's kind of a meme. I'll just go with Gloria because I just even though she did, really go for Foggy, I guess it still felt like she was going to at any moment if Matt, came back to her. I couldn't tell if she was just a friend, but she might have just dipped Foggy in a second if Matt was any kind of stable there, whatever. Foggy is kind of just the, there for me, holding it down kind of guy for the time being. So I don't know. I guess I think she's not so loyal. So I'll give it to Gloria for for
Yeah, well,
stringing Foggy along.
there's her, and then really, really Foggy. I feel like Foggy is often just he's holding it down for Matt most of the time too.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
that's a whole that's a whole trope.
He's really a sip for Matt in all
Yeah.
facets.
Uh, my wow moment. Uh, when Kingpin blew up his house, like we didn't. I think we did get some panels of it. It wasn't the actual art or like the action of the blowing up of the house that was wow for me. It was just like that's another level of petty. Like that really does exemplify that it was
Mm-hmm.
personal, because Kingpin is not, you know, I feel like Kingpin's typical character would be to buy a house, or to buy something out from under somebody, and he does all that stuff to Matt, but then the blowing up the house is just a real fuck you.
Yeah.
And I guess we're an 18 and older podcast. I don't know if we established that, but or 13 and older, whatever the modern. I guess one of
Ratings
those in
are.
PG-13 movies. So, but yeah, it was just super personal, and I think it does a good job of establishing. I think it's good in the art of the rubble and stuff. Very very much a controlled explosion too, because the other buildings didn't seem to be that damaged.
Yeah.
So impressive
Anything around it,
impressive craftsmanship with that too. Demolition work.
he found the right guy for the
Yeah.
job. Um, and yeah, I guess for me, what would it have to be? I mean, maybe finding out, because I don't know if they had done this in the like movie that I'd seen before, but the origins of his, how he got his powers of pushing the man out of the truck and then getting hit by a radioactive something. I didn't know that, and it was quick. You know what I mean? I feel like it's just that one scene, and that's all you need to know. I guess you know what I mean. The radioactive thing like hit him. I don't know if it was in the eye, something around, but it was just I don't know. Yeah, I guess for me understanding the origins, because if it is a born again thing, I was hoping to find out maybe what how he got his power. So that was kind of cool. That was mine.
Yeah, and I hadn't thought about that, because obviously, I mean, yeah, that's part of the dynamic here with not having that background in comics. Yeah, like for me, obviously Daredevil and his origin story as somebody that's been around comics and done a lot, like that is a pretty known story. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's not super complicated. Um, Actually, in my research, I found out they did a lot of retcons with like his other parts of his backstory, but that has stayed consistent to my knowledge.
Gotcha.
And yeah, it's very it's I don't know how often it's revisited in Daredevil because I don't read a ton of Daredevil, but it very much is revisited in this arc in a way that's doesn't detract from the story and really does. Yeah, I mean that's part. I do feel like that establishing that in the story is part of what makes it accessible enough to be as popular of a story as it is,
Oh yeah.
and as quintessential as it is. So, uh, dumbest decision. I'm going to go with Kingpin here and his decision to bring in Nuke. It comes to fruition in the last two issues, which are not, again, not technically part of the Born Again arc, but he does make that decision during the Born Again arc, so I'm going to count it here. Um, and I said we're covering the whole thing. I I feel like he almost like he would have gotten away fine. He would not have necessarily beaten Matt with if he I mean, like not by not calling in Nuke, like you're not. It doesn't change the Born Again storyline. Um, Daredevil's still gonna come out on top there. He's still gonna survive. But at that point, I think it becomes just a survive. He just survives. But the Nuke storyline, then that's a loss. It becomes as opposed to a push, it becomes a loss. I think by that decision for Kingpin. So that's the dumbest decision for me. I took it from the comics. I don't know if you had any writer artist decision or anything, or what'd you come up with?
Yeah, dumbest decision. I feel like for me, I hadn't that when I really had down. But yeah, I mean, when I think about it overall, for someone, you know, what I mean, as calculated as Kingpin was, I mean, that's I feel like it's just, you know, what I mean, a loose cannon, something he can't control, right? I don't know if he had done much of the research going in, but you know, what I mean, that's probably gonna have to be, be mine too. It's like he had control of most of the situation, you know what I mean? Like everything going down, and then it was even one of the people that he choked out, you know what I mean, saying, we don't want this kind of, heat or attention or something, right? And it's kind of like ultimately his downfall, his pride. That's like, no, I'm gonna do it my way, whatever happens, and that's kind of
Yeah, I
it.
think that I mean it exemplifies part of that the Kingpin character that makes him again more of a complete character. Like he's mostly stoic and mostly measured in his reactions in what he's doing. He's planning, but if you get to his emotions, and Daredevil does, then that's where he gets sloppy, right? Is when he gets emotional,
Mm-hmm.
um, and takes things personally. And that's a trope. That's a bit of a trope for those powerful bad guys, those guys in powerful positions. That's a bit of a trope, but I think it's a realistic one. Um,
Yeah.
so who do we recommend this for? I'll let you kind of touch on some of what you learned and maybe give some background as to what I think people might take from the story, and then I'll get into my recommendations and who I really think this story is going to appeal to.
All right. And yeah, when I think about this story overall, I feel like learn a bit about the time period of, what I mean, how the writer kind of portrayed, what I mean, New York, just the cities overall in these times, like very dangerous overall. What I mean, people don't even feel like they can, go down the street or just, exist, having their places kind of always looking over their shoulder. You know what I mean? Whether it's just people, coming to rob you, whether it's a, real bad guy, and people just kind of pulling strings. You know what I mean? It's kind of that I guess the power struggle we see just with people, either political people, it can be right in power, but there's always kind of that organization of some kind, kind of looming over. So I think I, just learned a bit about that dynamic that the writer was trying to show to those kind of times.
Yeah, I think it's a little different too than some of the previous storyline. Again, with it being self-contained, this gives you more of that idea of like what an ongoing comic book is like. So if you're looking, somebody's coming in and you're looking for comics. Do I want to continue reading comics? Do I want to start trying to keep track of ongoing comics? Like this is a little bit more of what you're going to see, whereas some of the other events and some of the other story arcs that we cover are going to be self-contained, so it's going to feel a little different, and it comes out sometimes in those stories. So I think that's something that is definitely relevant here. For recommendation, if you like, I mean, if you like the Daredevil TV show, if you've watched that and you want to know where a lot of that comes from, this story arc really contains a lot of the meat that goes into the Daredevil TV show and other Daredevil interpretations. If you're a big fan of those darker Batman stories too, the Christopher Nolan style Batman stories, this is works pretty well on that level. There's a little bit, a little bit here of kind of the chaos and those chaos agents, and then who's really behind them, that type of thing. I think that works well. That's something that people will pick up on. A little bit of noir, if you're big into the noir crime stories. Somebody's pulling the strings. Somebody's doing something that is causing the main character to have to figure out what's going on. There's not so much. It's not so much. I mean, it's not a detective work. It's
Yeah.
not. He's not really investigating. But Yurik does some investigating. There's some of that in there. There's intersecting characters, and it's dark. Um, yeah. So final part here. This is the important part. This is the big thing. Right now, we have our ranking, and at the top, we have Marvels with an 8.5 rating, and we both agreed last time on 8.5.
Mm.
I will at some point get a board that I'll either bring out or set up. So we have that going. I think we probably need maybe two or three on here before we really need that visual. But right now, Marvel's 8.5. Gavin, I'll let you go first. What was your ranking on a scale of 1 to 10, including halves?
Yes, and so yes, if I remember, Marvel's 8.5. For me, yeah, overall, I feel like that one was just more, I guess, entertaining for some reason. Yeah, hard, to pick exactly what my brain right now, but I'm going to give this story still a recommendable. I think like 7.5. This one's coming in for me.
So I mean, this is not my intention. I've not intended to uh, come up with the same ranks. I've tried to
Nice.
do this blind both times,
Okay.
and yeah, I came down on 7.5. I went back and forth between 8 and 7.5.
Yeah.
For me, it's a personal feel. I don't like the darkness. I talked about I don't really like the Karen Page part of the story as much.
Mm.
Um, it just again, it's more of a personal feeling on this one. The reality of it is like this is quintessential comics for the era. Like this is up there, one of the better comics of that era, one of the better comics of that genre of superhero comics. If you want to break superhero comics down into really specific genres, like it's up there. I've heard people call this the best comic book storyline of all time. But yeah, for me, it's a 7.5. It's There's some stuff that could be better. It seems like it wants to go sometimes. There's those. It flirts with the political commentary. It flirts with some other points and doesn't really get into them. But I think it handles it all very well. It's just not quite for me in that sense. And again, I mean, there's a reason that I'm not a huge Daredevil guy. It's not because Daredevil's not good. Like it oftentimes Daredevil is very good. I like a lot of Daredevil stuff, but it's not a character that I connect to the point that like I have to, I feel like I want to go read more stuff all the time for him. As you can tell from my background and the stuff that we've talked about in the past, like I'm more of an X-Men guy. Get into the X-Men stuff a little bit, and Daredevil's just he's grounded. He's really good. It's yeah. I feel like I have to defend it because it is
Yeah.
such a quintessential story. Like
Right.
7.5 feels like I may be selling it short, and maybe at some point we get more stories on here, and I decide and we can go back and revisit some of these at a later date. But at this point, Marvel's
Right.
covers so much. It just was so beautiful, and I
Mm-hmm.
like the art here. It works. The style is great, but it's just not. I just don't connect to it on that emotional level in the same way.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that about wraps everything up for this episode. Next time, I suspect we'll probably end up looking at something maybe a little DC, something from maybe a different angle. We'll try to keep it a little different until we come up on. I think when we get closer to some of these movies that are coming out later in the year, some of the different series that are coming out, we may hit some specific stories based on what's coming up and what's going to be relevant at the time, and whether or not you want to go watch the movie and then do you want to read that story or not? Is it worth it? We'll cover it.
Yeah.
So I'll let Gavin take it away for the end and the as always.
Yes. As always, thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe below if you like the videos. So yes, thanks for coming back. Once again, I'm Gavin. This is
Andrew. I'm
and
Andrew. Sorry.
thanks for
We'll
watching.
work on the cues. We'll get better. I promise.
Yes.
Later.
Later.